What if I told you that everything you believed in was a lie? The luxurious mansions of the late 19th century concealed behind their stone facades not only enormous wealth, but also a profound inner emptiness. The women of that glittering era traded their freedom for silk wallpaper and high status, becoming beautiful and completely powerless additions to expensive interiors. Watch the video to the end to find out how the richest brides of their time voluntarily entered golden cages to forget their own desires forever. Are you ready to learn the truth about how the wealthiest families of the time were actually created? In spacious living rooms decorated with heavy tapestries and gilded mirrors, the fates of young girls were decided over a cup of porcelain tea. Mothers carefully studied the financial situation of potential suitors, paying absolutely no attention to their daughters' personal preferences. A man's vast fortune became the main argument that outweighed any doubts or timid objections of the future bride. In the months leading up to the engagement, the girl's life turned into an endless series of tedious fittings and long visits to dressmakers. Tailors created dozens of lavish dresses, from expensive French lace and thick satin, to emphasize the high status of the future family. Each outfit had to fit perfectly, demonstrating to those around them the wealth and impeccable taste of the young lady's parents. During this period, the girl herself was perceived only as a beautiful mannequin on whom the ambitious hopes of the entire noble family rested. After the solemn ceremony, the young couple embarked on a long honeymoon, which often lasted several months. They visited the most famous European capitals, staying in the most expensive rooms of the grand hotels of Paris and Rome. During these trips, the woman realized for the first time the true character of her husband, his habits, and hidden flaws. There was nowhere to run from the submarine of a luxurious transatlantic liner, and wives had to learn patience. Returning from her travels, the young mistress crossed the threshold of her new huge house, which from now on would be her permanent residence. Heavy wrought iron gates closed behind her, cutting off her past life and carefree youth. The waiting servants lined up in a neat row, awaiting the first orders from their new strict mistress. From that moment on, her every step began to be evaluated by society with incredible, frightening meticulousness. This was how the long road to disillusionment began, a road that every wealthy bride of that harsh era had to travel. The outward glamour of gold and diamonds served only as a bright cover for a deep and hopeless loneliness. We would be very interested to hear your point of view on such marriages of cold calculation. Please write about it in the comments. And be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on new in-depth historical insights. What if I showed you a time machine that would take us straight to the chambers of the new mistress of a luxurious mansion? The first acquaintance with a new home always began with a tour of the staterooms and the spacious dining room, decorated with dark carved walnut wood. Huge crystal chandeliers hung from painted ceilings, reflecting off the perfectly polished parquet flooring. However, the main place for a woman was her private room, located away from the noisy corridors. The furnishings in these rooms were striking for their abundance of small details and all kinds of decorative elements. Rows of porcelain figurines brought back from distant travels were lined up on the Carrara marble mantelpiece. Soft poufs and armchairs were upholstered in expensive silk, and the floor was always covered with a fluffy carpet with an intricate floral pattern. Despite the apparent comfort, the abundance of things often created a feeling of stuffiness and constraint that was impossible to get rid of. Next to the bedroom, there was always a separate dressing room, more reminiscent of a small fashion boutique. Long rows of wardrobes hid dozens of dresses behind their doors, sorted by season and time of day. Special chests of drawers held gloves, lace fans, and silk stockings, neatly arranged with scented sachets. Choosing an outfit became a complex daily ritual, subject to strict rules of etiquette and the demands of society. In her bedroom, a woman could allow herself to take off the tight mask of the perfect wife and relax a little away from the judging glances. She could cry quietly, burying her face in a lace pillow, or simply stare into the flickering flames of the fireplace. Here she did not have to keep her back straight and smile politely at those she deeply disliked or was indifferent to. This room became the only place where she could be herself, even if only for a short time. Over time, the bedroom turned from a refuge into an exquisite prison cell, which could only be left with permission. The days merged into an endless series of identical rituals, and the walls of the room became silent witnesses to the quiet extinction of a woman's soul. Luxury ceased to delight the eye, turning into a mundane and even irritating backdrop to a foreign, artificial life. Do you think it was possible to find comfort in such cold splendor, or did it only intensify the longing? In the next chapter, you will learn what hidden rituals filled the morning hours of these women. The hidden truth that everyone keeps quiet about is that even the simple act of waking up was subject to incredibly strict rules. A wealthy lady's morning did not begin with birdsong or sunshine, but with a quiet knock on a heavy oak door. A personal maid would enter the room silently, carrying a small cup of hot chocolate or weak tea on a silver tray. She would carefully pull back the thick curtains, just enough for the dim light to illuminate the table without disturbing her mistress's eyes. Particular attention was paid to styling the hair, which was a real architectural process involving pins and pads. The maid carefully combed the long strands with natural bristle brushes, achieving perfect smoothness and natural shine. Then the hair was gathered into intricate buns at the back of the head or styled in tight curls around the face, according to the latest fashion. One awkward movement by the maid could ruin the entire hairstyle, making it necessary to start the whole long process all over again. After breakfast, it was time for conversations with the housekeeper and discussions about the daily menu for all the inhabitants of the huge house. The mistress received the keys to the pantries and wine cellars, meticulously checking the lists of necessary purchases and expenses for the week. She had to know exactly how much flour, sugar, and fresh meat would be needed to prepare dinner for 20 people. This duty was tedious, but extremely important for maintaining the reputation of an ideal and hospitable aristocratic home. Towards noon, it was time for embroidery or small watercolor sketches in the quiet of the bright library. Thin needles pierced the thick silk, leaving behind even stitches of multicolored threads that formed intricate patterns. These monotonous movements helped calm her nerves and pass the time until the start of the afternoon social visits. The finished embroidery was often given to relatives or used to decorate the numerous pillows in the guest bedrooms of the mansion. By noon, the morning duties were considered complete, and it was time for another change of clothes. The woman took off her house dress and began to prepare for going out, which required a completely different appearance. The morning calm ended, giving way to the hustle and bustle of the second half of this endlessly long day. Be sure to like this video if you are interested in such detailed descriptions of historical life. What happened behind the closed doors of the most respectable houses was always very different from the beautiful public image. Spouses rarely saw each other, preferring to spend time in completely different, distant parts of the huge mansion. The men would retreat to their dark offices, upholstered in green leather and oak paneling, where they would smoke cigars and discuss business. Women, on the other hand, were strictly forbidden from entering this exclusively male territory by the unspoken rules of strict Victorian etiquette. They addressed each other with exaggerated politeness and coldness, often using formal titles or the formal you. A wife had to agree with her husband in everything, without questioning his authority or the correctness of his decisions. Any disputes or arguments were nipped in the bud, as harmony in the family was considered the key to public respect. True feelings were hidden deep inside, giving way to the perfectly rehearsed politeness of two strangers. In public, during joint trips to the theater or balls, the couple had to demonstrate absolute unity and well-being. The husband respectfully supported his wife by the elbow as they climbed the wide marble stairs of the opera house. They exchanged rehearsed smiles, creating a beautiful picture of a successful and happy marriage in high society for those around them. But as soon as they sat down in the closed carriage on the way home, a heavy, impenetrable silence hung between them again. Women quickly learned the rules of the game, understanding that their main task was not to cause trouble for their busy spouses. They learned to hide their boredom behind polite phrases and hide their tears behind the thick veils of their fashionable hats. Over time, the expectation of love was replaced by a bitter acceptance of the reality that marriage was merely a mutually beneficial social contract. The husband provided status and money, while the wife guaranteed impeccable housekeeping and a perfect image for society. Could you live in constant emotional tension for the sake of maintaining high social status and material well-being? In the next chapter, you will learn how these strict ladies coped with the endless changing of heavy outfits throughout the day. Clothing in that era was not just a way to cover the body, it was a strict tool of social control and self-expression. Each outfit had its own specific purpose, and a mistake in choosing a dress for a particular hour could turn into a real scandal. A woman's wardrobe consisted of dozens of complex designs, often weighing several kilograms due to the abundance of heavy fabrics. Wearing this armor of prosperity was incredibly difficult, but society did not accept any excuses for fatigue or illness. Strict, closed dresses made of thick wool or dark matte silk were intended for daytime visits and short walks. They had long sleeves, high stand-up collars that covered the neck up to the chin, and heavy multi-layered skirts. Such an outfit was necessarily accompanied by leather gloves, which could not be removed in the presence of strangers on the street. The look was completed by a bulky hat decorated with ribbons or artificial flowers, which was attached to the hair with long metal pins. Preparations for a dinner party or grand ball began several hours before the grand event itself. Evening dresses were striking in their abundance of velvet, gold embroidery, glass beads, and incredibly long, heavy trains. They had deep necklines that exposed the shoulders and neck, which were generously adorned with heavy family diamond necklaces and rubies. The weight of such an outfit was so great that dancing in it was a real test of physical endurance. Changing clothes took place 4 to 6 times a day, turning life into an endless cycle of unhooking and hooking. Maids worked tirelessly, unfastening dozens of small buttons and untangling long silk ribbons on corsets. This process exhausted women, taking away precious time that they could have spent reading or relaxing. Clothes dictated how they sat, how they breathed, and how they moved, depriving them of the last bit of physical freedom in their own homes. In the end, clothing became a kind of armor behind which one could hide one's true thoughts and weary gaze. The heavier the velvet and the brighter the diamonds sparkled, the more reliably the deep sadness in a woman's eyes was hidden. They bore their fashionable cross with their heads held high, accepting these inconveniences as an inevitable part of their glamorous lives. What the experts don't talk about is hidden in the small details of preparing for the most glittering celebrations of the great age of glamour. The hostess personally approved the elaborate menu, written in elegant calligraphy on thick cream-colored French paper. Silver trays and crystal glasses were polished by servants to a dazzling shine to impress the most discerning and arrogant guests. In the spacious, stuffy kitchen, dozens of chefs worked non-stop, creating culinary masterpieces from the rarest exotic ingredients. The floral decorations in the reception rooms required enormous financial expenditure and the impeccable aesthetic taste of the mansion's hostess. Hundreds of fresh roses, rare orchids, and heavy lilies were delivered from the best greenhouses to fill the rooms with a thick, sweet aroma. Florists created complex compositions several meters high, decorating staircases, marble fireplaces, and dining tables with them. The beauty of these flowers, which wilted overnight, was a symbol of the transience of wealth and the artificiality of high society life itself. The dinners themselves consisted of 10 or even 15 courses, turning into a long and tedious gastronomic marathon. Servants in snow-white gloves silently changed plates made of the finest Sèvres porcelain, pouring collectible French champagne into glasses. The guests engaged in leisurely conversations about horse racing, new theater productions, and the latest stock market acquisitions. The women at the table were assigned the role of grateful listeners, who were only required to nod gracefully and admire the wit of their interlocutors. When the last carriages carried the weary guests away into the darkness of the night, the mansion was plunged into a hollow, frightening silence. The hostess remained alone among half-empty glasses, wilted flower arrangements, and the stubs of expensive wax candles. The tension subsided, leaving behind only an all-consuming physical and moral emptiness from the meaninglessness of the past evening. The success of the reception was measured only by the number of mentions in the morning society columns, which would be forgotten the very next day. These balls and dinners were real work for wealthy women, their main professional duty to society. They put all their energy into organizing celebrations, trying to fill the inner emptiness with external glitz and tinsel. But among the hundreds of people in the luxurious halls, They felt lonelier than ever before in their lives. How often do you have such large-scale and exhausting receptions in your life? In the next chapter, you will learn how these fragile women managed a huge staff of servants and ran a complex household. A luxurious mansion of that time was a complex mechanism, the smooth operation of which depended on a huge staff of servants. Dozens of people were under the mistress's command, from the manager and chef to simple laundresses and boys who cleaned the fireplaces. Managing this army required not only iron discipline, but also excellent organizational skills comparable to those of a military general. The mistress did not have to do physical work herself, but she was obliged to control every speck of dust in her house. Particular attention was paid to the discipline and moral character of the servants, who lived in cramped, unheated rooms under the roof. The mistress had to prevent any romantic relationships between the staff, monitor their neatness and sobriety during working hours. The maids' uniforms, black dresses and snow-white starched aprons, had to be impeccably clean at all times. The house was a kind of state within a state, where the mistress acted as a strict but fair absolute monarch. Relations with the servants were strictly formal, excluding any familiarity or excessive sympathy. The maids were invisible shadows who were obliged to disappear when their masters appeared and reappear at the first ring of the silver bell. They were addressed in short, curt phrases that brooked no objection or unnecessary questions. The distance between the masters and the servants was enormous, emphasizing the social inequality of that harsh historical era. Conflicts between servants were resolved exclusively by the mistress herself, who acted as the supreme judge in this closed microcosm. She had to deal with petty theft, quarrels in the kitchen over unwashed dishes, or complaints about the excessive strictness of the manager. These minor everyday problems took a lot of emotional energy, without bringing any satisfaction from the routine work done. The mansion demanded constant attention, sucking energy out of the woman like a huge and insatiable stone vampire. Managing the house became a way to escape thoughts of the meaninglessness of her existence in a gilded cage. Immersing themselves in calculations of pounds of sugar and yards of lace for new curtains, the women tried to forget their unfulfilled dreams. This routine saved them from madness, giving them at least some purpose in a life confined by the high walls of a wealthy estate. In an era when there were no telephones or instant messaging, writing and reading letters took up a huge part of a woman's day. Every day, a stack of correspondence was delivered to the boudoir on a silver tray. Dinner invitations, visiting cards, and personal messages. This flow of paper was the main link to the outside world, allowing social connections to be maintained and city news to be learned. Opening heavy envelopes with wax seals became a leisurely ritual that required silence and complete concentration. Replies to letters were composed with particular care, as the written word could become the property of the entire high society. Letters rarely discussed true feelings or deep personal experiences, with preference given to descriptions of the weather, outfits, and past balls. The wording was flowery and polite, hiding real emotions behind a set of standard compliments and courteous phrases. Frankness was allowed only in correspondence with the closest relatives, and even then with great reservations and caution. Occasionally, among the business and social letters, there were rare messages from friends of her youth, reminding her of the carefree times before marriage. Reading such messages evoked a slight melancholy and a poignant longing for the freedom that was forever lost after the altar. Women would sit by the window for a long time, rereading old lines and remembering bold dreams that had been shattered by the harsh reality of a marriage of convenience. These letters were kept in secret drawers of the bureau, tied with silk ribbons, like the greatest treasures of a bygone youth. A special type of mail was bills from dressmakers, milliners, and jewelers, which were delivered directly to the office of the lawful spouse. Women had no money of their own, depending entirely on the generosity or stinginess of the man they were married to. Any unplanned expenditure on a new brooch could lead to an unpleasant conversation behind the closed doors of the man's library. Financial dependence was another strong chain that kept women in their obedient and decorative role. Over time, letter writing turned from a pleasure into yet another tedious duty of the ideal hostess of a large house. Words lost their meaning, becoming empty shells that concealed all-consuming boredom and emotional stagnation. The ink on the paper recorded only the outer side of life, leaving the inner tragedies deeply hidden between the lines. The paper world of social correspondence replaced real intimacy, creating the illusion of active communication in this lonely palace. When the sun disappeared behind the horizon, the huge mansion was filled with the yellowish light of gas lamps and the flickering of hundreds of candles. Social life quieted down, and the longest hours of evening loneliness began, when the mask of propriety could finally be removed. Her husband would go to his club to play cards with his business partners, leaving his wife alone in the spacious and cold halls. The silence became almost palpable, interrupted only by the steady ticking of the grandfather clock and the occasional crackling of the fire in the fireplace. Sometimes her only company was embroidery by the dim light of a lamp under a green glass shade on a small table. The needle rhythmically pierced the fabric, leaving behind an endless trail of small stitches, symbolizing time wasted. Her thoughts flowed slowly and monotonously, returning to the same unanswerable questions about the meaning of such a joyless existence. During these hours, she felt particularly acutely her detachment from the world and the impossibility of changing the path predetermined by society. The heavy canopy bed seemed too large for one person, emphasizing the emptiness of the cold linen sheets. The shadows from the flame of a single candle danced bizarrely on the silk wallpaper, creating an atmosphere of anxious anticipation in the room. The woman lay down on the high-down pillows, closing her eyes in the hope of quickly falling asleep until the next difficult morning. But sleep often did not come, giving way to painful reflections on the past day and fear of the coming decade. Insomnia became a faithful companion to many noble ladies, who could only escape it with the help of laudanum drops. This opium-based medicine helped to numb the pain in their hearts and plunge them into a heavy, artificial, but saving sleep. A bottle of dark liquid always stood on the bedside table, serving as the only available remedy for chronic despair. Society turned a blind eye to this secret addiction, preferring not to notice the true causes of female melancholy in wealthy homes. In the morning, traces of nighttime tears were carefully hidden under a layer of light rice powder and blush, applied by the skilled hand of a maid. The wheel of routine began its new turn, forcing the woman to put on the mask of well-being and the perfect wife again. The loneliness of the evening remained a secret, locked behind the oak doors of the bedroom, where the last hopes for warmth and understanding died. And so it continued day after day, year after year, until habit replaced the very need for human happiness. Years passed, and the brilliant young bride, imperceptibly to those around her, turned into a strict and cold matron, the mistress of a huge mansion. The rebellious spirit of youth, which had once timidly tried to fight against the injustice of the rules, finally faded under the weight of gold jewelry. A bitter but salutary realization dawned that it was impossible to change the system, and all that remained was to find a safe place within it. Emotions dulled, giving way to pragmatic calculation and the desire to maintain at least the appearance of perfect order in her life. Comfort was often found in charity, which was considered a mandatory activity for ladies of high society in their mature years. Organizing bazaars, raising funds for the poor, and visiting hospitals gave the illusion of usefulness and personal significance in this world. It was a socially acceptable form of activity that allowed women to go beyond the confines of their homes and gain the respect of society. Behind the mask of charity lay an attempt to fill the inner void with other people's problems and distract themselves from analyzing their own broken destinies. The things in the bedroom lost their former luster, becoming familiar and somewhat boring objects of daily tedious use. Silver brushes tarnished with time, and expensive silk wallpaper faded under the rare rays of the stingy morning sun. The room no longer seemed like a beautiful prison or a safe haven. It simply became a place where most of her life passed. The woman blended into the interior, becoming as integral a part of the mansion as an antique tapestry or a grandfather clock. The silence in the house was no longer frightening, but rather soothing, shielding her from the hustle and bustle and hypocrisy of the noisy social world. Long evenings in an armchair by the fireplace were perceived not as punishment for loneliness, but as a well-deserved rest from the eyes of others. The books still lay on her lap, but stories of passionate love now elicited only an indulgent, slightly sad smile. Reality turned out to be much more prosaic than any novel, and the woman learned to accept this reality without hysterics or regrets. This is how the stories of many brilliant destinies hidden behind the heavy velvet curtains of luxurious mansions of the burlesque era ended. Their names remained engraved on silver trays and family crypts, but their real voices were lost forever in history. What do you think about these hidden dramas of the past and the price women paid for living in a golden cage? Suggest topics for future historical videos you would like to see on our channel in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe.